Christian or Not is a production of Revive Studios.
It's the late 19th century, and you're traveling through upper Northeast America, and you have to take a stop in Cleveland, Ohio. Maybe that's more the Midwest, but regardless, you're traveling through town, and it's a Sunday, and it's expected that on Sundays you're going to attend a local church. Maybe on vacations in the 21st century, that's something that's much less common, but in the 19th century, the entire town is closed up. You're going to go to church. And so you go down to the Baptist church down the street, Euclid Baptist Church, and you get there. You enjoy you checking it out, and as you come in, you get there in time for the Sunday school service before the main service, and you meet a few people. They're nice. Everyone's been friendly so far, and you meet the Sunday school teacher, and it's a little bit of an older man, perhaps, and he starts talking to you. What are you doing in town? All the normal things that you would talk to them about, and he looks from all accounts, everything seems normal. He's 5 foot 10-inch guy. He's a little slightly overweight, but not too bad. He's actually, if anything, he might be maybe a little thin. It's hard to tell. Pleasant overall voice. And he's in his mid 60s. You're going to say he's mid 60s, right? And as you're talking, maybe he brings up a couple of his kids, how they're doing, the classic conversations that you would have. And he might tell you, I've actually been a Sunday school teacher at this church since I was 20 years old. He could tell you fun stories about all the different things he's done, or how he helps kind of set up the once-a-year picnic, and they even promoted him to superintendent, so he's really in charge of the Sunday schools. He might introduce you to his wife, Laura. She's a sweet woman. She goes by Ketty sometimes, and he might tell you all about Junior and everything they've been up to. And you might even notice, like, hey, I pick up a little bit of an accent. You're not from Ohio either. And yeah, originally from New York. And he might tell you about growing up, how the district in New York that he was from was called the Burnt Over District. But during the Second Great Awakening, these preachers came by and preached a fiery gospel. And that's how his mom came to Christ. And even though his dad wasn't around much, she raised him in the church. And that's why he's been following God all these days. And around this time, at some point, he might say, one of my life mottos has always been make as much money as you could, but then give away as much as you can. That he'd heard that from some of those early preachings in his life, and it had just always stuck with him as a great idea. And in that moment, at some point, you might have been wondering, who is this Sunday school teacher? Seems like a very nice guy. He's been running this place, been around for a long time. And he may even joking back and forth and telling his life story. He may tell you about the time that he was trying to live out that motto, giving tens of thousands of dollars away while also asking the bank for a loan of $1 million. He jokes, and his wife laughs, and you're really starting to wonder, who are you talking to? And if you asked him what his name was, he would say, "Oh, yeah, nice to meet you. I'm John D. Rockefeller." And you'd realize that Sunday school teacher is the richest man in not only the world at that time, but he's actually one of the richest men to have ever lived. Welcome to Christian or Not. This is Troy, and
My name's Mark, and I was mesmerized by that intro. I read the script, I knew it was coming, but still, I was seeing it. I was seeing myself walk into that Sunday school, wondering who this guy was.
And I hope that's where we could get you. Obviously, if you clicked on the title of this, you would have probably guessed it was John D. Rockefeller. But that's the reason, that story right there was the reason I wanted to do an episode on him. Because at some point, we had talked about names of people that should be on this show. And I had heard there was like this rumor in the back of my head that John D. Rockefeller was a Christian. The original Rockefeller was. But it goes against everything I've heard of or know of or anything about the Rockefeller family name. And so I was like, okay, if there's a guy I want to know. I've always been fascinated by business people and the way they interact. Like, look, it may be nerdy, but one of my favorite things to read about is like, how did a fast food get going? Like, how did the McDonald's people become McDonald's? And how did, over the summer, I got to go to Chick-fil-A's headquarters and hear like the story of how the guy who founded Chick-fil-A, I was like, man, what did he do next? He sold those buns for 20 cents. Crazy. Like, I love these stories of businesses because in a lot of ways it's competition. It's like battling, but instead of wars, it's dollars. And Rockefeller, like, he's the king of that, right? But was he a Christian? And there are people who already are maybe in the comments going, "No way, absolutely not. How could you even ask?" He's tricking you because he's a lizard man or something like that. So no, that's not the direction we plan to go today.
No, I don't think so. That's so just episode 2, we did Isaac Newton first, now John D. Rockefeller, but just a real quick recap of what do we do here on Christian or Not. Um, we do not want to be the judge. We know we are not God. We cannot see in the hearts of people, but we just, we like history. We like to do our research. We read about people and we can see the fruits of what people do. And we just, basically go over the information that's available and then give our honest opinion. We ask you for your opinion. And I think all in all, our goal is just for us all to learn something here.
Yeah.
We don't want to be, the holier than thou people looking at other people being like, oh, that's wrong, or that's wrong. That's not what we're doing here. So, so that's
When we first kind of kicked this idea of a show around, and it came from Elise, who is the host of Martyrs and Missionaries, and my wife, and she was like, "Hey," she was reading like philosophy for a degree she was wrapping up, and she was like, "I'm kind of just curious. Like, there's all these famous philosophers. Which ones of them were Christian or not?" And that just was like the germination idea that became Christian or not. But for me, as soon as I started, I was like, it would be really nice if we had one place where we could go, where we could find out, like, was Winston Churchill, was Abraham Lincoln, was John Rockefeller, was Isaac Newton a Christian or not? I don't know anybody who's really trying to find that out. And so I was like, we should know these things. So if these are like, I love the famous pastors and preachers and missionaries and people that we've covered through our years of doing these shows. I've learned so much from them. But I also think it's important to know, like, these people who have completely shaped history, who've led history, who've done so many things through history, some of them claiming to be Christians who maybe weren't, and some of them who weren't Christians at all or don't seem to be known for being Christians, but maybe actually were. I think it'd be really important to know. And so originally to me, it just felt like it'd be like somebody needs to do this information and research. But what's interesting, as we've kind of been doing this research, it's made me realize I'm also studying what I believe it is to be a Christian. Like, what are the values and beliefs, the things in the sand that I'm not going to cross and say that person's a Christian if they don't believe these things? And what it challenges me, well, what should my behaviors and actions look like if I claim I'm a Christian and I'm in business or I'm in this whatever? Well, what would that look like to be? And that's kind of what Rockefeller, in looking at his life, kind of taught me. It was like, okay, there's this side of him that is clearly going to church and, would look like a Christian. Does it match the rest of his life? And does it match who he is? And would we find it acceptable? Like, if this guy, I use this in other places, but I use it here too. If he's in church with us, would our church put him on church discipline? Would our church be excited to have him? Because I don't think I also don't want to apply a standard that's so ridiculously perfect, no one can live up to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I think any church would be happy to have a guy like Rockefeller in there,
If we're certainly
giving us 10%. That would be pretty good.
his generosity would certainly, I mean, we did some deep research. I read, entire ridiculously long article on Cleveland, Ohio, information that is absolutely useless to me now for the most part. So I got deep in there. And at one point I was reading just like his records of interacting with this church in Ohio. And he had other churches later on, but specifically, like, it was like donation amounts, this, and this. It was that was one thing. He kept a very strict ledger on what he gave and didn't give, so we can get some really detailed things there. But yeah, you're right. Everyone would love to have him. And when it came to generosity, that was something that we'll get to, but he's pretty known for. But let's go back a little
Yes,
bit to the
please.
beginning, because you've probably heard the name Rockefeller. Maybe you've even used the joke, like I do it to my kids, hey, can we buy this? What do I look like, a Rockefeller? I haven't got money for that candy at the convenience store. Knock it off, right? Like, you know their names, they're rich, famous people, and maybe you're up there getting ready to say, yeah, and they're in the Illuminati, and they're also the Knights Templar, and they're Rothschilds. Okay, maybe we're not going to go down that road. We're going to use the research and information. We're just not going to go there, because that's not what Christian or Not's really we're here for. I just don't think it's us.
That's going to be our next show, Conspiracy or Not.
Conspiracy, yeah, that's there. You know what? There are plenty of great conspiracy podcasters.
Yeah.
Great, depending on how you want to use it. We'll let them do that. We're gonna stick to what it is we can do here, and that is definitely history. And now, but there is an element, not of truth to the conspiracy, but an element where there's an issue here, and that is, although I don't believe that Rockefeller was a lizard person, there is an element where I can't be 100% certain about what I'm reading with Rockefeller, because he will found a network that is extremely generous, extremely giving. His son will take over that network, and the Rockefellers will give absolutely massive amounts of money later on in their life, but there will be a little bit of spin to it. Like you're not gonna say bad things about the guy giving you this amount of money. And so how many of his stories, what is he saying? How much of it is 100% true? And how much of it is a little bit of the spin or propaganda of time that has kind of massaged it into something that wow, what a great story. Well, it's because it's a story, right?
And this seems like a great time to say that this show is sponsored by
The
another.
Rockefeller Network, who, no, I think, I mean, I like our studio, but I do think it'd be a lot fancier if it was being supported up.
That is absolutely true. We'd probably be able to hire a producer. I wouldn't be like pushing a button here with my left hand the whole time. Like I would be yeah, we would probably be a little better off, even though I love the studio, Troy.
I think it's great. Oh
No
my
bad
goodness.
word about the
Yeah,
studio.
this is, I mean, for a studio in Indonesia, I think we have one of the top. I'm willing to put it out there. I think we have one of the top history podcast studios currently being recorded in Indonesia.
I think that is a very safe bet to make. Yeah.
Sorry, everyone else. We'll
Yeah,
all
I
see.
mean,
But I think we got you right now. For now,
someone's got to be first. Someone's got to.
we're paving the way for the next people.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
absolutely.
So there's just a lot of noise out there in the life of Rockefeller. It can be just difficult to tell what part of his life is real and what part is not. We're going to try our best to stick with the facts of things that I'm pretty sure about without over speculating, because that's not what we're going to do. I read a lot of different stuff. I read like a Time magazine interview of him from 1928. Like I read an extremely long article on his life in Cleveland. But again, the more I read and the more I looked at his life, the more I kind of realized I don't know anything about this guy. So let me give you the rundown. Let's start with who he is and how he became who he is. John D. Rockefeller was born in 1839. His father, William Rockefeller, was a con man. He was a jerk. He was a bad guy. His nickname was the Devil Bill. And that tells you, and not like the Devil Bill in a fun way. Like he was actually like a really kind of not a nasty piece of work.
Is there a devil Bill in the fun way? Like what we gonna look like?
You devil, but like in this case, it's like
okay, yeah.
you devil, like you're a bad guy.
Okay.
Everyone loved him, like he was the life of the party, but he was also like he was going to do bad stuff. John never actually says like anything negative about his dad. Like in all of his records, he is extremely respectful of his father and keeps it very positive. In fact, he would even go on to say like, I owe my dad a great debt for how much I learned from him and how much he taught me and how much he's done for me. But by all accounts, his dad is a complete jerk. They originally came from New York, and it seems like at least one theory is that running from the law, they moved to Ohio. So right off the bat, his childhood, he has to move to this part of Cleveland, Ohio, very likely because his dad has broken too many rules and is in trouble. He's not a jerk like maybe in the traditional sense. Like you might think, okay, he's a jerk because like he's yells at his wife and he beats his kids. No, he's like a con man. Like his dad goes around the West selling fake medicines to people. He'll roll into town on a wagon with a bunch of herbs and stuff and say these potions, but he wouldn't call them potions, but it will cure you of anything you have. If you have cancer, you won't have cancer after taking this. If you had cancer and are going to die, it'll make the process smooth and painless. It's all garbage. None of it is real, but he's going to act like it is. He conned people all over the West back in the day of like cowboys and settlers. And these people don't have access to real medicine. So a guy shows up with a wagon full of miracle cures from the East and they don't know what to do.
I'm just now putting this together actually because I mean, I'm not from the States. I don't know my history that well. But like so he was born 1839. They moved from New York. So we're talking maybe like the 1850s,
Yeah.
give or take. This was like still full on Wild West cowboy stuff happening.
Yeah. Not only Wild West, but like John Rockefeller will be graduating as the Civil War is, like, kind of starting, and it's really after the Civil War is considered kind of the wild frontier cowboy days. Like, the gold rushes kind of happened in 1849, so, like, there are people out there, but, like, when you think of Jesse James and all the cowboy life, that's happening as many of the kinda Confederates and people moved out west to get their own land. They're kinda break that's some of that's happening because it happened after the Civil War. That is the era that, like, Rockefeller is coming of age into, and that's the area that his dad is out there selling these medicines to.
So pretty harsh environment,
Yeah.
probably. Like this is not like your friendly, just little quaint town at this point. This is just all like people.
Yep.
Maybe some more people are out there for the same reasons, like, had to leave the other town because things
Yeah.
got a little hot, getting a little warm under their feet.
And it's the kind of time too where if you run from one state to another, like, that's the end. They can't really do much to catch you because it's just too difficult in those days too, and so oftentimes you sell a miracle cure to a town, it doesn't do anything, well, it's
Long
fine.
gone by the
You're
time
by the
the
time they realize they've been had, you're out of there, and again, now some people are sitting here and might be listening to this episode and going, "I see where John gets it." So I see where he got his business sense of conning people from. But to be fair, like, actually, that's what John said too. Like, he would describe his dad. He said, like, "I learned what I learned about business and selling things from what my dad taught me." My dad spent a lot of time, teaching us to sell and to buy things. His dad did write in, like, his diary or something too. Like, I would purposely con my kids as much and as regularly as often because I wanted them to know every con in the book. Like, I wanted them to expect a con when they went into the world. That was, like, his way of prepping them. Like, I'm gonna con you and beat you down, kid, so that when it happens to you in the future, you're gonna know, "Hey, that's like what dad used to do."
It's kind of like like one of those birds that sort of just kicks
Yeah.
their little chick out of the nest.
It's a
Like
very
the world is a harsh place, and I'm gonna be
it
harder to
yeah, it
you.
really is. It's a very Spartan way to, like, raise up the kids. They're kinda like, "Yeah, like, you're gonna get conned, so might as well be me who teaches you what con life is like." Again, his son, John, has nothing but respect for him for it.
Yeah.
And another thing about the Devil Bill is that he kept $1,000 on him at all times. $1,000 back in the mid 1800s is a lot of money. Even Rockefeller in the 20s would say about his dad, like, "I keep dimes on me and give them away and people love them." I'm amazed that my dad had $1,000 at him pretty much at all times. Like, that's just dangerous and wild. Now, to give you more of an idea, not only is he a con man, he was also off partying as he went from town to town having a good time. But he would just kind of show up in John's life for, he hadn't seen dad in a year. Oh, dad's here for a few months with a bunch of money in his pocket. Yay. Oh, dad's heading off to work again. Where's dad? And that's kind of how his entire life went with his relationship with his father. And his relationship with his grandpa was even kind of more mysterious. Like, literally, as he was describing it with his own kids, he'd be in the mansion one day and he'd get a ring up and he'd be like, answer the phone or, the telegram or whatever. "Hey, grandpa's at the station waiting for you to pick him up." I had no idea grandpa was coming to town. Grandpa's got a violin. All the kids were having a party. Grandpa's here. "Grandpa, what do you do for a living?" "Oh, no, you don't tell us or anybody what you do. You just mysteriously travel through our lives." So, like, the Devil Bill was a force of nature that you couldn't understand. And it sounds like Rockefeller's grandfather was even more of a mysterious force. Like, the way Rockefeller described it, like, everybody loved grandpa. Nothing brought more joy to when grandpa came to town, even though we would never know when he was coming, how long he'd be here, when he would leave. It was just all a mystery, and no one knew what he did or anything about his past. And I'm like, what a mysterious family.
It's I'm just trying to think of like what does it make me think of, but it's just so random.
I would like you
It's
to think this. It doesn't make me think this is gonna be the guy this is gonna be the family that raises 3 business tycoons that rewrite the world. Like, that's not normally the kind of like, this is much
No.
more like the story of, like, and this is when he became a hippie artist or, like, a director of movies or, like, the kind of thing that you would think artistic, maybe he might change the world. I do not hear in this severe businessman in this backstory at all.
No, not so far, but who knows what's gonna come.
Now, the one more thing about Devil Bill that needs to be mentioned is, and this will come up in his life later on, is that he had a second family from all accounts. So he would live with the Rockefellers under his actual name, but at some point he set up a second identity and had a completely second family in New York. And this would come back and be a real issue for Rockefeller later on. So again, you're getting an idea of what this family was like and what John was. So the person who had the most influence on John's life was definitely John's mother. And John's mother was the opposite of the devil Bill as you could be. He picked and I don't know, like I don't he didn't pick somebody like him. He picked a strict, upright, very, almost puritanical woman. Not mean, just disciplined. Like, she was a firm hand on that family. She encouraged the children's faith growing up severely. She was, completely always at church, and she was all about working hard to save every penny and make the most of life that way. John's childhood is the story of a poor kid with in many ways, an absentee father. However, one moment where his dad kind of came in the clutch was there was one high school that I wouldn't even say it was an elite school. It was just kind of the only high school in the area, and it was in Cleveland, Ohio. And his dad was able to kind of pull some connection strings, money, whatever, to get him in there. Now, John was only there for 2 years, which, by the way, wasn't a big deal. Not graduating high school like today, if you're a high school dropout, that's not great. Back then, it was actually extremely normal. He quit high school so he could go to a business kind of school for a few, not even that long, but it was pretty normal. Like this is how you kind of got your break in. That was expected. The high school was very important for 2 reasons, though. A, it taught him a lot of his kind of formal education. I guess 3 reasons. B, it was where he met his future wife, Laura Spellman, who we mentioned at the beginning of the show. It would be the only wife that he would have, and he loved her by accounts his entire life. And he didn't get married right out of high school, but it would be pretty soon thereafter. He also is the C here is he met a man named Mark Hanna. I've never heard of him, and I'm gonna guess that you probably haven't either.
I mean, I just only figured out, the whole frontier, well,
Yeah,
that's part of
sure.
American history. So no, I
Yeah.
have no idea who
Mark
this man
Hanna,
is.
not a super famous name, today, but in his era, he was a political kingmaker. He was one of the most important people in politics at the time. He is seen as the guy who would ensure that the William McKinley becomes president. And if you're the kind of political kingmaker that can be the party guy that you go to make a president, you're a pretty important person. And it just is a coincidence that two of the most important people in their era happened to go to the same very small high school in the middle of nowhere at that time. And not no offense to Cleveland, but at the time it was very small. Part of the reason you maybe have heard of the name Cleveland, Ohio today is because of what these two guys are about to do to the world. But it like it's just what a coincidence in history that these men and they became friends. Like they were lifelong friends from this point on. Like oh, they were high school buddies. Like they would see each other, and it was a permanent friendship for the rest of their lives, despite the fact that they would be going in very different directions. I try to think of like a modern equivalent to this, and I just like I what would it be like the equivalent of a tycoon of business like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos going to a very small high school in the middle of nowhere before he was famous with like a Joe Rogan or a Donald Trump Jr. or something like somebody who's big in politics. Everyone knows their name, but even that doesn't feel quite right. I mean, it's no real comparable, I think, person. We don't have a one person political kingmaker anymore. So I really don't know what you would
Well,
compare it
and
to.
especially in a time when, you weren't getting around as easily, like there were maybe some railroads out there
Yeah.
that was about it. That was the fastest way of getting out to Cleveland, Ohio. And I don't know my maps very well, but from what I'm gathering already, it's pretty far from, New York and the main cities of
Yeah.
the older colonies, so you will. So older states, sorry, said it wrong. The older states, yeah. It's sorry, European mistake. No.
We call them states. We prefer to call them that. I guess it would be like the equivalent. My thought is just like Elon Musk uh, grows up in like Fairbanks, Alaska, or no, like even further out, like some hill in the middle of Alaska somewhere where they have like a small school and happens to be going to school with, I don't know, like Hillary Clinton or something. I know that doesn't work, but that's like the closest equivalent I can think of. Like
Just
that, it's
major
so
coincidence.
random that one of the richest people on earth happens to be with like a very politically influential person in their own way. I don't know what else you could compare it to. Now, after quitting high school to go take a business school, he went around Cleveland begging for someone to give him a job. But he was a graduate of a business class, and he had never worked a day in his life. He was a young man, and he had a very interesting philosophy. He basically took time to look at like what were the firms with the best reputation, the best integrity that were going places in his mind in Cleveland. He listed out like, I don't know, 20, 30 firms, and he was like, these are the ones I see going somewhere. And then he just went into each of them and said, "Hey, I want a job. I want a job. I want a job. What do I gotta do to get a job here?" And they all like said no. And so he went through all 30 firms, and then he just started it back over. And every day for 6 weeks, he would just work through his list top to bottom. And once he hit the bottom, he just went back to the top. And he did that for 6 weeks in the middle of summer, no car, no anything, walking from place to place, asking, "Well, is there anywhere I can get a job? You can let me work. I just want to work."
Wow.
And
That is some dedication right there.
it's some dedication. And it really also tells you Rockefeller was a nobody. Like, you cannot say this guy had a hand up. Like, he couldn't even get a job at like doing anything. Nobody
Yeah.
wanted him at all.
But I mean, major credits to him that he didn't go the con man way. Like
Yeah, true.
he persisted. He kept going. Like he could have followed in his dad's shoes and just started, selling fake medicine and whatnot.
You know, and
But
who
he-
hasn't been tempted to go down their father's shoes and start selling fake medicine,
I
right?
mean, it all comes up in those career talks.
It's an important part of every son, every son growing up. Am I going to be like the old con man dad, or am I going to be like grandpa and wander aimlessly through? Yeah. It's a good, yeah, it really does show. So he eventually does get somebody who says, "Okay, meet me at the docks tomorrow. Look your best. I'll give you kind of, we'll see." He gets a job as an assistant to the assistant bookkeeper, which is pretty low on the totem pole, but this is everything to him.
So he's the assistant to
Yeah.
the assistant.
Like, it's a low job, but to him, this is it. He marks it on his calendar. It's in September, job day. And he, for the rest of his life, would celebrate job day way bigger than his birthday. His birthday, I didn't do anything for my birthday, but he would say like, job day. That was the day the world gave me a chance, and I grabbed that chance. Like, he would gather kids around, and his grandkids, "Come here, let me tell you about job day." It was, it's my 50th job day celebration where I was allowed to be an assistant bookkeeper here and put some words and numbers on paper. And that's how I started making money. And again, it just tells you how his outlook on life was. Like, he just was so excited to be able to start working. He was so convinced that once I get a job and work hard enough, eventually I will start to make my way. And the thing is, yeah, he gave a speech at a church. His son asked him to come speak at a church, and he found his very first ledger, his very first notebook, and he like held it up, and it was so dirty with notes. Literally, he was like, "I was so poor, and I was so trying to save money that I would use the cover and the inside of the cover to leave notes so that I wouldn't have to buy a new notebook to extend its life." And he was like, "I was kind of going through it. I just found it recently the other day." He said, "But I remember how careful I was with money. And those first couple years, I was only making $25 or so, I believe it was, either a week or a month. It was not a lot of money. And yet I would save some of it as I went and do odd and end jobs until within a couple years, I was able to save $1,000 on my own." And this was something that I had to put myself in the mindset of an 1800s businessman, because I realized we think very differently about money today. If you have a business idea today and you want to prove it, you're going to go use charts. Maybe you're going to use ChatGPT, but you're going to go out of your way to go, "If you invest this money here, here's our plan to make it grow money. And we're going to spend money to make money." It's a common phrase. That is not how money is viewed in the 1800s. In the 1800s, you proved you were good with money by how good you were at saving it. And when you saved 5 cents somewhere, you put that down because that was your proof to the world that you are a good businessman. You didn't spend money to make money. That idea, in some ways, actually, John Rockefeller isn't, we're going to see, a pioneer of that idea. So he's kind of the reason we get there a little bit, but it wasn't there yet. The way you proved to the world you knew how to do business was how much you could cut and save and still have a good product. And that played out everywhere in your life. So every little penny he put away to stock into that $1,000 was in some ways his way to prove to the world, I am somebody you should do business with, because with this low paying job, look what I was able to do. Now, if you hire me for something greater, look what I might be able to do as well. Now he combines this money with $1,000 his dad gave him. His dad said, when you turn 21, I promise to give you $1,000. He said, hey, I'm 19, but I have a business opportunity. Can I get my $1,000 early? He said, okay, if you pay me interest. That's dad. And
Come on, Dad.
but John, he loved it. He was like, again, forever grateful. Dad's $1,000 is how I got my first shipping company going. With his 2000, another guy, they open a shipping company. They buy, I guess, a ship, and they start shipping some agricultural stuff. And I don't know about you, but at like 19 and 20, I wasn't starting my first shipping company.
I mean, but
How old were you when you started your first one?
Oh, still counting, you know?
Yeah, you're not there yet.
Jury's still out. But I'm gonna be honest, I still feel that way about so many things where I hear about like these business tycoons and the age that they started, and they're like, yeah, I was playing video games. Like I was not doing like I was having fun, you know, I was hanging out with my friends, I was being a social guy. But I was not thinking of starting any kind of company. And you know, I'm not an entrepreneur. That's just not me as a person. But I do find it amazing when I see these people do it like this as well. Like what you just shared as well, like just grinding for it, just working hard. But I think he really had such a clear vision of where he was going to go as well. So that's, yeah. I mean, when did you start your first company?
Yeah, well, I mean, I started my first podcast, right? But like there was also he said he was a youngster. He said, like, when I was young, I had a dream. It sounds stupid because it was every young guy's dream. I want to have $1 million, and I want to live to be 100. And like, you could look at that and be like, that's so cheesy, but like, come on, who doesn't want to have $1 million and live to be 100, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but then who actually follows
the
through?
thing is, though, he then said, that's my dream. Let me go for it. And he actually aimed for it. And so he starts a shipping company, off to a good start. Oh, Civil War of America hits, and Rockefeller's of age to serve. However, you could pay to send a substitute for you back in those days. Now, usually it's the rich people sending them. Rockefeller isn't rich, but he's able to save up enough money to send someone to go and serve in the Union for him. And he had to have a legitimate excuse why. And his legitimate excuse was, I am the sole care provider for my family. My dad is the devil Bill wandering around aimlessly. Who knows where he's at? And I just started a shipping company and took, my family's means of provision to start this shipping company. If I leave it now, the shipping company will fall through. There will be no way to provide food and family for my family. So you could look at him as like, wow, he's a draft dodger, or you could say that seems like a pretty legitimate reason to not be currently in the Civil War.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I have like a little math question here, because if he was of age to serve,
Yeah.
but then you pay and someone else goes, that person was also like
Yeah.
already go anyway, right? Like, how does that work?
I don't know the math on how you find someone who substitutes for you and how that works out. But I will say, though, he was a big fan of it. Like, not the Civil War. He was a big fan of the Union. Like, he was a hardcore abolitionist. He really hated slavery. He really hated everything that was going on there. And it was very clear, like, he was like, I want the Union to win. I want that side to go down.
Yeah.
I just can't go fight in that war.
Just really showing my, not being from the States here,
Sure.
but Cleveland, Ohio, which side were they on? North?
Cleveland,
South?
Ohio's north.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be up there in the north, and he's getting called to go fight for the Union. But he's gonna say, like, again, just start a shipping company, not the time. So he does this thing. His brother Frank will go fight in the war. So there are members of his family out there fighting, just not him. However, because sometimes with like the Civil War, the North is all good and the South is all bad. But actually, Rockefeller doesn't seem to have that opinion either. He has a real soft spot for the poor people in the South, and it'll come up a lot later on in his life how much he wants to help those people kind of come out of their poverty circumstances. So it's not like he hated the people down there. He just really didn't seem to like slavery. Now, and you know what? Good. Neither do I. I'll let it be known, on Christian or not, we don't like slavery either.
Yep.
Now, I won't pretend to be a business expert on how he does this next part. Just like in the Isaac Newton episode, I don't think we could fully explain all of his theories. How he makes his money from here out, he starts right now. During the end of the Civil War, there is an oil boon in the world. Oil is becoming the next thing. Oil is becoming the next oil rush. I mean, I don't know how else you say it. And most people are running over to different parts of North America, especially Pennsylvania, buying land, hoping there's oil on it, because if there's oil on it, you can be rich in an instant. And it was so bad that like people were just sloppily sloshing oil around. It didn't matter what you lost, because every barrel was worth so much money. You were going to be fine. Rockefeller and his business partner were deciding, let's get into the oil thing. But Rockefeller was saying, but let's not go down that route. Let's not go buy all the drills. That's very, fortune. You could buy land that has oil, or you could buy land that doesn't, and you've lost all your money. It's a very dangerous risk. Let's instead buy the refineries. Let's get in through the oil has to come to us to become usable. We'll make our money that way. It's not going to make as much money at first, but if we do it right over time, it's a steadier income way to go. So again, Rockefeller's like 21 or 22. He maybe 23 or 24 at this age. He has the opportunity to get in on the oil game during the oil rush, but unlike many of his peers and colleagues, he's choosing the safer, reliable, more business savvy route. This will make money. The refineries will be a good idea. It just won't be as quick money as, he's the guy who's carefully building a company while his friends are chasing a crypto, right? That's kind of what he is. The crypto might make all the money, or it might all toss and burn. You don't know what's going to happen. He's going the safer route.
Yeah, we're also not giving crypto advice here on Christian or not. Yeah, but it's very interesting because indeed, like he just looks like, for sort of maybe seemingly the harder route, like could have been a con man. No, decides to just go around finding that job, and he just works at it, and he saves his first dollars. And now again, like you can just start drilling, you strike oil, and you're rich. But
Yeah.
no, he's like, okay, we could do that, or we could just be the guy that they have to go to, and then
Yeah.
I don't have to keep finding oil wells.
It really does seem like Rockefeller can see, not like into the future as in like a mystical way or anything like that, but he's just seeing down the road like, okay, yeah, you're going to build all these oil wells, but those oil wells are going to have to go somewhere. And if I can get to the end of that road, or where the oil wells go, that's where I'm going to make a lot more money. And so that's what he's doing. And the Civil War really put oil on the path to growth. We're not yet at automobiles and planes, which are all going to need oil too. But up until this point, I mean, the world is lit by candle. Up until this point, the world is using whale oil, and there are people out there catching whales and expensively getting the oil out of it in blubber. It's a whole thing. It's killing tons of whales. And this is the moment in history where all of that begins to stop, where the world is beginning to embrace electricity, where you're able to heat your home with something that came out of the ground through a drill, not through 1,000 logs, and not you're able to start building cities now. You had them, but a very different type of city than the ones we had before. Oil is becoming usable at the exact moment when we need oil for what's going to come next. And he's in the middle of this perfect moment, and he buys this refinery at a very young age. And I read on one kind of paper, this is where the moment where like luck comes into it, where something that you couldn't have predicted shows up. And that is, a chemist kind of came to Cleveland, Ohio, with a theory on how to refine oil differently than anyone's ever refined it. He's like, I've done the chemistry here. If we put these things together, your oil will be cleaner, better, and will refine faster, and you can have more of it than the other guys. And you just have to take a risk on me. I have this formula and way of doing it. I need a refinery that's willing to go with me and try it. And Rockefeller is that refinery where he says, okay, we'll implement your process, and it works, and it is better oil than all the other guys. So now his refinery has a step ahead of the rest of them. And once he gets that step, taking that risk with this guy at 25, he is suddenly now in charge of the largest oil refinery in the nation, if not the largest one of the largest one. But then listen to this. By the age of 31, he owns the largest network of oil refineries. And by the age of 38, he will be refining over 90% of the United States' oil. And that is a meteoric rise to power. I mean, I can't even think of anything that is as useful to the world as oil was that anyone ever owned over 90% of it.
It's like I'm trying to like a modern world equivalent, like you're owning 90% of the internet.
That's
Like
exactly
everything
what
has
I
to
was gonna
go
go.
through
It
you.
would be as if
Yeah.
somehow one person owned 90+% of all the social medias,
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
I know Google kind of attempted that with Google and YouTube and stuff. That would, but 90% of it. I'm talking almost everything going through that one engine.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I'm starting to see now where this guy's gonna make the big bucks. Yeah.
And that was the thing, it was buying the extra refineries. He realized, like, one refinery makes a lot of money, it's good, but since everyone needs to refine the oil, my biggest way to make money is to buy more refineries. So he'd go up to already made refineries in different towns across the United States, and he would say, "Let me buy it from you." And as he bought each refinery, he would take the money that that refinery started making and use it to invest into the next refinery. Again, spend money to make money. He's kind of pioneering this idea of if I buy enough of these, eventually I will make all that money back plus way more. And if you've ever played Monopoly, right? Like, the board
Yeah.
game kind of based on him. But you've got these little, the first thing you got to do is start buying all those hotels and playing them out. Eventually, I don't know how the game ends because I've never played a game of Monopoly to the finish line, but
Has anyone?
I'm
Yeah.
not sure that it's even possible to do, but I know that eventually multiple people have hotels. They're spending money. But again, at that time period, the idea was save money. And once you have enough, then you kind of move forward. The idea of building a large refinery and making a ton of money and then using that money to buy several smaller refineries so that you could use that money to buy even like that's just thinking in a way that nobody in the 1800s really
Yeah.
was. Even today, when you see somebody doing that, you'd see him and go, "Oh, that's a master of business. He's thinking 3 steps ahead." But at least he's seen other people do it.
Yeah.
This is before anyone has ever even thought of
Yeah.
this kind of way of doing it.
So talking about the game Monopoly, it sounds like he was building his own oil refinery
Yeah.
monopoly, and usually one of the bigger drawbacks of that is like you can set the price. Like there's no competition, there's no one, there's no market at work anymore then.
Yeah, and if you ever play the game Monopoly, by the end of the game, everyone else is broke and you have won because you raised your price. The prices got too high and they ran out of money. That's not what Rockefeller does. Like price wise, the price of oil, he will have truly a monopoly on oil. It will be so bad that the United States government will eventually break his monopoly. We're not quite there yet, but it's coming. But while he's running oil solely through him, he can make it whatever price he wants to. The price of oil will drop 80% during his time. So if originally I would like the price of oil to drop 80% when I fill up the tank, right? Like that is a
Yeah.
significant drop of money, making it much more affordable at the exact moment when cars and things like that, planes are needing oil to be affordable. He's cutting the prices and making it cheaper and easier. When all the refineries are run by one company and they're all running through one system, you can actually make the price a lot cheaper because it's a lot easier. Usually no competition makes the prices worse and the business worse. In Rockefeller's case, it seems like no competition allowed Rockefeller to bring the prices down as much as he humanly could. And that's not what you normally see.
Oh, that's an interesting turn of events. Speaks to his character,
It
I
definitely
guess.
speaks. He could have made oil a luxury elite good that only the richest and greatest of people could show off with their very rare cars on their
Mm.
very sweet private roads. And in the world of oil, if he had raised prices and everyone became this giant competition of who has the most money, it really could have become this elite novelty thing that the rest of the world didn't get to enjoy. He went in the exact opposite direction. He thought the best thing from oil would be everyone's using it. Everyone can live a better life with access to it. Now, that's not to say I fully understand his arguments. And certainly people have made the case that he undercut those refineries and then everyone walked out like the refinery went broke and then he bought the damaged refinery. But I read other people who said no, that's not what happened. Like the people who sold their refineries usually walked away with pretty good money, happy with their buyout. I'm not sure which one of those stories is true, and maybe both are. Maybe sometimes he undercut them and other times, but we see that happening in business today. Walmart is famous for undercutting the local guys till they're out of business and then raising the prices. This is a common business tactic. I'm not saying I like it. I'm saying that it's not something we haven't and we don't still see around today.
Yeah. I mean, that's just good old capitalism at work, right? That's
He's-
just the way it works.
Now, the part where you might criticize him for the capitalism is some people will say, well, during this time, he made a deal with the government. You still had to, once you refine that oil, you still had to get that oil out to the world. And he made a deal with the railroads through the government, kind of a secret handshake deal that my oil will move cheaper than everyone else's. I'll make more money than everyone else because of that. And because I'm making more money than everyone else, we'll work things out, me, you, and the government. I'm not sure how much that is true. Yes, he did actually have a cheaper oil moving on the railroads than his competitors, and that made it difficult for his competitors to ship oil. He also was shipping a lot more oil, and usually if you go to a store where you buy 1,000 eggs, you usually can get it cheaper than when you buy 3 eggs. Like, that's just normal business.
Yeah.
How much of it was just, yeah, you're shipping 100 times more than the competitors are, we'll give you a better price. I don't know. That's people have their very strong opinions on that either way. As a businessman, he was known to be really nice to his employees. Like, especially in those early days of the refinery, when things were stressful and hardest to see, was this all, everything was on the line. Was it going to work out? All his employees were like, yeah, we'd have stressful, tough days, work long hours. He'd always smile, nod, be friendly with us. He never raised his voice. He never cussed at us. He was never acted wrong. Like, they all of them interviewed later in life when he became the super mega wealthy guy, all were like, we loved working for him. He was a great guy. He seemed nice. He was never the dictator manager yelling at the company, do it my way, and I know what's going on. He was always just the nicest, friendliest guy you could have working for.
Yeah, I mean, so far I'm not reading any like Scrooge McDuck vibes here. Like
Yeah.
he seems like just a good boss.
If
Good
all
guy to
these
work for.
stories are true, and remember, like, how much of these stories have been impacted by the Rockefeller name over time. But then again, reverse that. He was the richest man alive, and you still said he was a nice guy. You could have been famous and made your mark by saying, what a jerk, I hated that guy. You didn't do that. I think that's worth something as well. He probably
Yeah.
was then a nice guy. And he was also just a strange guy. Here's a story from him. Like, he would famous for taking naps, like in the afternoon. Famous napper. Hey, I don't nap because whenever I try to wake up from a nap, I just never fully come back. Like, I'm gone.
I actually had that this afternoon. Like,
Yeah.
had a late Zoom meeting yesterday, and I was so tired. I just needed a nap. I set a timer. It woke me up, and I was just confused.
Yeah.
And like your whole body feels
Yeah.
just slow. And it took me a good hour to get back into rhythm.
I've read that that's a sign you're not getting enough sleep. And I'm like, if that's the case, my entire life, I'm not going to go to sleep because I've never come out of a nap and not felt like time has traveled around me. And, I don't know what week I'm on anymore.
I mean, in all fairness, it's now 10 o'clock local time here. We're still doing a podcast. So
Yeah, so
there may be some truth to it.
I don't hear it. But the thing is though, this dude loved his naps, and he would be he had a nap in his boardroom. Like, when the boards, like when the directors and people are arguing about what to do with big business deals, I can imagine them shouting and banging at the table. If you want oil in California, you're going to, and he would just kind of wander over, take a nap. And that was like, it's nap time. I'm good now. I'll see you later, guys. And that just both kind of shows how calm his demeanor is. And he had a whole life philosophy. You do a whole episode on just his philosophy of, like, you need to always be self-controlled. Like, he really believed self-control of emotions was how you would win at life. And that, like, one of the ways you do life is by being, he would be a stoic when stoicism wasn't like a thing or popular at the time. Like, just this idea of being master over your emotions is your first step to mastering kind of life. And so taking a nap in the middle of a board meeting is not really a big deal. But what was interesting is, like, while these guys are shouting and fighting in the board meeting, he would occasionally, like, pipe up and just throw a question someone's way that they would be like, that's actually a really good question. We need to ask that. And you were like, I thought that guy was asleep. Again, what a strange guy.
I I kind of like it. I'm just imagining this situation, like you said, like people shouting, and then just the big bosses on the couch. So everybody's also kind of mindful, like
Yeah.
you
Once
don't
in a
want to
while.
offend him. Like, how does this work? And then he just says something, and you're like, wait, Yes. Why haven't we thought of this? Like,
Well, and that's the thing too, like, even the way he would sit in the boardroom, he didn't sit at the end of the boardroom, like, where the president normally sits. Apparently, he liked to put the guy he'd been disagreeing with and fighting with the most at that spot to, like, give him the most chances to have his say, while he would sit down the side of the table because he didn't wanna be seen as the big boss in the way of making decisions. But he's also taking naps like a total power move. I don't know, in a lot of ways, like, that's the goal. Like, if I'm the powerful boss of a gigantic mega company, I wanna be able to show you how little I care by taking a nap in the middle of it. So, I don't know, man, it's crazy. But he's making so much money, he's growing his business like crazy, and he's doing all these things. Some of it people are saying are evil. Now, there's one person who's probably more responsible for his bad reputation than anyone else. Her name is Ida Tarbell. She writes one of the first biographies on him, and she like just really goes after, you made a secret sneaky deal with the government. That's how you made your big money. You're a bad person. However, her father was one of the competitors for oil during that time, trying to do its own oil refinery business and went down. And if he did have a secret sneaky deal with the government that allowed him to become this ultra wealthy guy, evil guy, then you know what? She's right. She's exposing a victim. Or if his dad or if Rockefeller was just business savvy and did a good job, then you're a bitter kind of person. But either way, that's the person who writes the first biography of, like, the life of and the business of. She's hardcore anti-business, and the main part of his story that she focuses on is the devil Bill. She finds out about his dad, she tells the story of his second family and exposes it to the world, and this crushes him. He's a private guy. He's always keeping everything to himself. And having his dad embarrassed, his dad that he's always respected and never said a negative word, just embarrassed to the entire country. And he feels like it's his fault because, I'm the one running the company she's after. It really hurts him. Now, I would also say it's your dad's fault for having a second family.
I mean, come on, there's something to say for that, but it also, like, there's a lot of firsts here. Like you have him sort of building his first sort of mega company, first kind of monopoly, first one to have this strategy of buying out other companies and building like a bigger conglomerate even. And but now he's also one of the first that sort of gets, like, in the target of the public eye,
Yeah.
like he really gets picked apart,
And this
even though
is
he doesn't want it.
And this is that early communism era, progressivism era where there's this, new wave of people saying, "Hey, we need to undo capitalism. It's evil." And you can't have a bigger face of evil than the guy running the gigantic oil company that just took over, like, the world. Like, he is even in a perfect world, the guy who's the richest man in the world from business is always going to be the face of evil, in any communist run group of people. That's just naturally going to be their target, let alone when he did it by being this really savvy businessman that took over a bunch of places really fast. That's just going to look like a villain, even if he wasn't a villain. And again, I'm not really weighing on that. I don't fully understand it myself. But what I do know is this had a really negative impact on him. He became extremely stressed out, and the public turned against him. Why does he own all the oil? The company he owned, Standard Oil, was huge, and Teddy Roosevelt, the president at the time, said, "We need to take that company to court. It has gone too far." And this gets brought to the Supreme Court. It gets decided it's a monopoly, and it gets crushed and divided into a bunch of different companies. And in a lot of ways, this might look like the end. The public outrage did it. The journalists, and in a lot of ways, it's kind of amazing. One journalist was able to kind of swing public opinion against him so much that all that money did not protect him, and he lost that battle. And this is kind of a tough moment for him. And he was so stressed out by it. Again, he's a private guy getting constantly harassed that he went bald. Like, he lost his hair, both his hair on his head and even the hair on his eyebrows. There's a picture of it. It's kind of a weird picture. I don't know that I've ever been so stressed that I've lost all my hair, or if I'm honest, any of my hair. Pretty intense. He was very shy and constantly getting hammered everywhere he go. This next part of the story, I read like several different accounts. I don't know which one is true, but something seems to kind of awaken in him, whether it's a turning back to God. Some people where he realized, I have more faith in money than God. There was one version of the story that he had like took out some insurance on a boat that was sailing, and he wouldn't take out insurance on a boat. He was a rich man, but he would spend $100 on on like a delivery he was sending. Then a storm hit really bad on the Great Lakes. He sent a guy to go buy the insurance, and when the guy came back, he had the insurance, great, but the package actually made it, and he remembered being angry that he spent $100 on insurance. He had wasted money, and like one version of the story was that, like that moment where he's like, I'm angry that I wasted $100 when my package got where it was going, and I'm this rich. Maybe that was it. Another version was, and he was a cheapskate. My gosh, there's a story where he has a cook and he's walking by a store and he sees that there are salmon being sold for 8 cents less than what his cook had put on the grocery bill. And so he sent his cook on like a 2-week, not vacation, but 2-week paid off time, has his second cook come in and he's watching the grocery bill. And if he sees it gets cheaper under cook 2 than it was under cook 1, cook 1's out of there because he's been cheating him 8 cents and maybe some more too. That's cheap. He's the richest man in he would be worth tens of billions of dollars today, but he's watching 8 pennies. I mean, like I can't even fathom that. I don't watch 8 pennies now, and I probably should.
I mean, I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say, if I had so many billions of dollars, I think I would be a little less on the penny.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I would have to try it to make sure, but I think I wouldn't be that guy.
I think so. But maybe that's why we don't have billions of dollars, right? We're not. Maybe that's what the difference between us and him.
Yep.
But like, so watching money, he's definitely money is an idol on some level to him. It's pretty clear, and yet at the same time, something changes. Another person was he met like a mystical guy and said, you need to give more money. There were so many different versions of the story. I don't know, but something changes and he starts to go, I'm going to give away money. Now, the thing is, that makes it sound like he hasn't been giving money away this whole time. He's always been giving away lots of money. When he was asking for a loan from the bank for $1 million to buy refineries, he was giving away tens of thousands of dollars at the exact same time. He's always given a lot. But it was like it motivated him to go even more on the giving side. Like, you know what? I don't care about making money anymore. I'm just gonna give it away. Now, ironically, if Ida Tarbell thought she defeated him by splitting his companies into 47 companies, nope. That was a real Phoenix dies, comes back to life situation because he used the money he had to kind of get early stakes in all those companies. And everyone saw, hey, Standard Oil made so much money. There's no way these 47 companies don't make money. They invested in them quickly. And so those 47 companies that are still around today, like Exxon and BP, become worth so much more money, and he ends up being far wealthier, having the major like shares of 47 companies than just one. And so if it was like, aha, we stopped you, the sequel of the movie Villain Commune is going to be, oh, look, it's Rockefeller again, even richer than last time you saw him because defeating his evil death ray created 47 death rays. Like, you know what I mean? This did not work at all in their favor. Now, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just thinking like, and it makes sense. Like if you're smart with one big company, like if you're gonna know how to make money with one big company, you're gonna know how to make money off 47 companies. And now you have 47 companies that are doing their thing. Like even I think from an economical point of view, you're just actually spreading your chances way better. So if anything, they did him a favor.
They helped him out.
They helped him out. It didn't feel like it though. I feel kind of sad. Like losing all your hair seems like a rough thing to happen to you. But glad it worked out for him. But I want to hear more about this next part.
So I think where we're at now though is we've kind of given you the rundown. If you're like if you're really dying for more 1800s oil company stories, we got them. Maybe that'll be a Patreon exclusive someday. But I think you're probably ready for more. Let's look at his faith. Let's get to you've seen aspects of his Christianity, giving money and stuff like that. But what did he actually believe? Let's look at that and move to that portion. So the thing is, we don't have a lot written down. Again, he's a very shy guy who didn't talk a lot in public. He did, again, visit a church where he shared how God helped him, lead him to make money so he could give it away. And I think it's his giving away where you start to see a lot about his faith. He'd always done it, but he gave a lot of money, and not to the places you might expect, like helping poor people. Everyone likes to do that where they can, but he's giving millions of dollars to seminaries, Southern Baptist seminaries, because in his mind, the South got wrecked by the Civil War and needs good theology. He's a Baptist. He wants to see the Southern Baptists do well because they need good pastors and teachers there. He sends a lot of money to foreign missions. The idea that people are around the world dying without the gospel was, we never hear him say it, I guess, but based on the money he gave to it, it was clearly an important part of his thinking. Churches, including his own personal church, but other movements as well, where he could, he's giving lots of money, not just to random public causes, but his entire life is marked by giving money to Christian causes to see that the Lord's people are moving. And speaking of seminaries, he's personal friends with a lot of these guys as well. John Broadus, you probably have not heard of him, is a very famous Southern Baptist theological seminary professor and president who was personal friends, spent a lot of one-on-one time with Rockefeller, would go to Rockefeller's house all his life visiting when he felt, the need. And Rockefeller will eventually start the University of Chicago. He wanted to put a divinity school in it. He wanted, and he does, he wants it to be a place where theology is trained for the better of Chicago. And he begs John Broadus, I want you to come work there. I want you to be a professor or a president. You would do a great job there. And John Broadus says, look, no, I can't. I got to stick with the Southern Baptist Seminary. They need me. But it just in that, and then they stay friends. They continue to be friends. He doesn't take it hard. Like, okay, I understand where you're at. I just really want someone good for this University of Chicago. But just that interaction tells me he's thinking about things, not just in terms of like, how can I look good? Let me build this university. It's very much like, how can I use this university for good?
Yeah, and also then hear what happens here with this good friend that actually says, no, sorry, I'm not going to go to your new university. I want to stay where I am at this the seminary that I'm right now. Like, he doesn't use the money as a power play. Like, he doesn't like go, oh no, then I'm not going to give you money anymore. Like,
Yeah.
there seems to be a genuine heart behind all of these things.
And he does give less money to the Southern Baptist seminaries at that point, but not like in a threatening way, just like, I'm running another school now. Like, I'm going to divert more of that education money towards that school, but not like a personal animus way. There's definitely no falling out. They stay friends for the rest of their days. And he does invite other Southern Baptist Theological Seminary professors and presidents later on, like, hey, E.Y. Mullins, can you come over here? Like, he's inviting them over for the rest of his life. Like, he really respects them and he thinks they would do a good job. He wants his university to be good. What's interesting, too, is most people don't even know the University of Chicago was started by Rockefeller. As Rockefeller is starting all these things, he doesn't put his name on hardly any of it. And you might be going, wait a second, but I've heard of Rockefeller Center, and that's in New York City. That's a famous place, right? It was started by his son. His son put his name on things, but the original Rockefeller really didn't. Now, he will also fund several colleges in the South for Black people to get educated. Spelman College was a free admission. Black women could get educated there. He named it after his wife, Laura Spelman, loved her. And he also will be one of the major funders of the Tuskegee Institute so that Black students could get an education. And most people don't know that Rockefeller did this because he started a company, like a way to give money called the General Education Board, which it sounds boring and no one realized, most people have no idea was actually an arm of Rockefeller so that he could give without having to put his name on it. So the number of institutions and things that he funded like that, where his money showed up and paid for it, but you didn't know where it came from, is actually really high. And to me, I mean, it sounds to me like the biblical principle of giving. Don't let your right hand know what the left hand is doing. Like, he seems to be trying to help the world without putting his name all over the world.
Yeah, I agree. That was just what I was thinking. Like this, like he could have done it so differently. He could have gone such a different way where he used his money, like I just said, like in like a power way, like really to get himself influence, to get himself power, to really get his will done, basically. That's not what I see happening here.
He could have been far more powerful. I mean, he was best friends with that politician guy growing up. I mean, he very well could have been talking about the story of President Rockefeller easily if this guy had wanted to, or at least it would have been on the table. And there's another very famous tycoon at the time, Andrew Carnegie. He does put his name on everything. Everything he gives comes with the name Carnegie's going to be on this from now on. And Rockefeller's not doing that. It's not that he doesn't know you can. It's that he doesn't seem to be interested in it. Rockefeller gave away at least $500 million of his wealth that we know of And today that would be considered 20 billion US dollars. And that is an enormous amount of his money. He will set up the first what is called a research hospital where they do research again through an unnamed kind of way. And that hospital will eliminate yellow fever and hookworm in the South, which were both present still. But that research hospital will go in and fix it. Again, his heart is on poor people in the South, a part of the country that most Northerners have kind of not cared about at all, actually. After the Civil War, the feelings towards the South were not strong. And the fact that the South was poor and hurting, it was kind of like, well, that's what you get, right? That's how a lot of people in the North felt, not Rockefeller. He's like, these people are poor, they're broken. We've got to lift them out of this because it's a miserable place to be. Oh, and they still have yellow fever and hookworm. So, like, let's fix that up as well. Um, when he in 1912, he had $900 million that he was worth, but when he died, he was worth only 26 million. That is to say, he gave away. He found ways to get rid of the rest of that money. And again, inflationary wise, bazillions and billions of dollars. Now, he also, just on a personal note, he loved his family. He loved his kids. He's dedicated to his wife his entire life. He doesn't have a secret family like dad. Um, He's he tried to have a good relationship with his brothers. One of his brothers will work in his companies and work for him his whole life. His other brother will work for him for a while. It's thought that maybe his weird stuff with his dad, they get in a fight over it. His other brother will go off and be like a rancher in Texas, own a bunch of big ranches, and he'll introduce himself as, I'm Frank or Rockefeller, but I'm not that Rockefeller. So like it's definitely a little bit of issue there. And in fact, he will be in Ohio at the same time as John when he's dying, and his very last thing he'll write out publicly to the world is, I'm dying and do not let John visit me, which is, I mean, gosh. And John's words recorded when he died was, that was my brother. I held him as a baby. Like, sad. I don't know what happened there. It seems like John seems pretty broken up about how that went too, but John and Frank did not get it back together, it seems.
And I mean, unfortunately, you hear these stories from all around, like, families, sometimes things don't work out. So yeah, don't know what to read into it. Like, we don't know. We haven't been there for the conversations, but yeah. I mean, let's think a little bit more like things about his faith. Like you said, he hasn't like written his own theology books. He hasn't shared his own like sermons by John D. Rockefeller, but just seeing all these things, like I'm seeing a man that seems to be wanting to do the right thing.
This is what I would want him to see. Like, if I'm thinking a big businessman living for Jesus in the world, I would want to see a guy who's not making it all about himself. I would want to see a guy who's giving his money away, using it for good, not cheating his customers, bringing the price of oil down. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say everything he did was probably perfect. I imagine he had to do some tough stuff to be a businessman, but especially in his later life, I just don't know what else you would expect to see. Now, what you might be wanting to see is some speeches promoting the name of Christ. And I'm with you. That would make it a little bit easier and a little bit more clear. He seems to be a shy guy. The only real time I see him talking in a church is when his son invites him to share at a young men's Bible study. And when I did read the speech, and at the beginning, he's like, hey, so I came expecting to meet a bunch of young men, and I see a bunch of old people came to hear me speak too, and it's a lot more crowded than here than I expected. So I'm just going to give you the speech that I was going to give to young men. Not like, so like you can tell like he was uncomfortable with the fact that this like kind of private moment of sharing his faith kind of got hijacked by a bunch of people. He's very much not trying to be a Christian leader in that way. Like, he doesn't see himself that way.
I mean, and he doesn't have to be. Like, he wasn't a pastor. He didn't go to seminary himself. He didn't study theology or anything. Like, that wasn't his thing. Like, would you expect any of your normal people sitting in church?
Exactly. Like, he doesn't see himself as a Christian leader. He's like, I'm a businessman. Like, if it feels like if he was in your church, you would be so thrilled to have such a humble like businessman in your running Sunday. And that's the thing. He may not have a speech, but he has 40-year track record of running the Sunday school at his Baptist church. I would imagine that if he was a heretic or something, somebody would have hopefully picked up on that in that time. And we don't see any record of that at all.
I mean, imagine all the kids going through that Sunday school having been taught by him. Like there should probably be some fallout.
And let's just say this too. There clearly are celebrity scandals looking for something. So I think we can go ahead and give to our opinion time. What do we think?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, our listeners, the viewers, they already feel it coming a little bit, but I think by all accounts, by everything that we see here, like at the very least, I have no reason to doubt that he was a Christian. If he went to church, like we don't know his deepest theological views. Like last episode, we did Isaac Newton. He writes a whole paper on how Jesus is not God. Okay, it's a little easier to form an opinion, and like we don't have that info here. But just seeing the way he lives out his life, he's faithful to his family. He gives away his money also for causes, like thinking of things like even if you're going to a church and you want to give money, but if you give it to like the education side of things, like the seminaries, to the missionaries, like you're really all for just furthering the agenda, if you will, or the kingdom of God into this world. Like you really want God to be known in the world. Like you wouldn't do that if you don't really believe it.
That,
Like
that
that would not make sense. And there would be so many other things you could give your money to. So yeah,
and
I'm
the lack of name on it, like you're not doing it for the recognition.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
we can think of other famous businessmen, like a Trump or something is going to put Trump Tower on it. Like, and we don't see that happening here at all. That there, like, and you have all these celebrity, like clearly people were looking to dig into his life. The best dirt they could find on him was his dad, which means that they didn't find dirt on him.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love that the richest, businessmen today could have such clean records, but that's not what we find. He's a celebrity. We generally hold celebrities to different standards, but he seems to be living it out. Like he really, I don't know what more you could expect from him. And so I'm also with you. From everything I've seen on paper, there could be something we're missing, and I hope there's not. But it looks like he's a Christian. It looks like his life is trying to reflect Christ. So then I think we have to kind of ask a second question that we wouldn't normally ask on Christian or not, and that is, what happened? Like, why does he have such a bad kind of reputation if he seems like he was probably a Christian guy? And if I can get some history, I think what went wrong is his son. John David Rockefeller Jr. was also a Christian. He's running this Christian Bible study that he invites his dad to in New York. But this church he goes to and grows up going to is a very progressive, not grows up, but this church he goes to is a very progressive church. The Bible's not fully true. Christians are supposed to make the world a better place through the government. A bunch of ideas that are very popular at the time. Everything from eugenics, the idea that some humans are kind of made better than others, everything from kind of communist strain of Christianity. This was all present at this church that the junior will end up going to. And I think that ends up being what happens. Junior will take the money that his dad made, and he will end up taking the reins of the Rockefeller Foundation and start to put the money into places that I don't think his dad, who was very fundamentalist, would have ever really appreciated it going. And that's not a conspiracy theory. Like we have clear records of the money going to Marxist groups that will have ties back to the Soviet Union that were using nice sounding names to try to promote communism in the United States. Like that's not in any way a conspiracy. And one of them, the Federal Church Council of America, something like that was like SCCCA, was literally run by communist agents at the top. Like Russia had put them in America, had paid them money. They weren't Russian, but they were like people that they had trained with the idea of getting the church to change its opinion on the Soviet Union. They would put out positive spin stories towards Russia and negative spin stories towards America and give their money to Marxist causes. And Rockefeller Jr. would give them a lot of money thinking they were good people. Now, I can't tell if Rockefeller Jr. was just kind of slow, like not, he's clearly he was a smart businessman, but he just didn't understand what he was giving his money to, or if he did and didn't care. But he's not being discerning. And so a lot of the money that goes into the Rockefeller Foundation that will come afterwards will be used in really negative ways. And I think that's why, and ironically, one of history's greatest capitalists will have his money squandered on some of the most Marxist people and organizations of all time because of his son. But you don't blame, Solomon for what Rehoboam does, right? You don't blame this son, Jonathan, for what Saul or for Saul. The father and the son are different people.
Right.
And from all my accounts of everything I can really see here, it looked like John David Rockefeller Sr. did everything he could to do his best to follow God. And it looks like it's his son and his foundation and everything they did afterwards that kind of ruined that legacy for him.
Yeah, so I think if there's like a lesson for us to learn here, it's definitely like, don't just judge a book by its cover, don't
Yeah.
just go by the name like, oh, Rockefeller, I know the name. I mean, just I'm glad what I learned here about like John D. Rockefeller Sr., like
Yeah.
the things that he did. I'm like, yeah, he did a great job. If
Might have been a
there
little
would be,
greedy. I will say he definitely had times where money was an idol.
I mean, but I think we all fall risk to that, and
Yeah.
it doesn't like greed is mentioned in the Bible as being an issue. So I think we're all very susceptible to that. So yeah, I do think, yeah, it's just so sad to see what happens afterwards like this, and I think you often see this, or there's often this risk, like where one person does good things or lives out his life in a good way, but then it sort of starts spreading and diluting, and
Yeah.
but it then sort of reflects back on that first person. So that's yeah, maybe good. I learned something new at least about John D. Rockefeller. Like I didn't know him that well, but yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested to read a little bit more about him. Maybe look for
Well,
a good biography, not
let's-
the one by
Yeah.
the angry lady.
The Angry Lady. And well, it's funny too, because one of the next biggest Rockefeller biographies that was written by David Horowitz, who would actually become like a very conservative guy, but he wrote the biography in the 70s when he was a self-professed communist. So you like two of the biggest biographies that set his name into history. One's a scorned daughter progressive, and then the next one is a very outright communist. That's not going to necessarily give you the most unbiased take on who he is. Now, we did the best we could. I hope that we were able to do a good job. But you know what, Mark? I have a feeling we'll get a plenty of opportunity to read more about Rockefeller, because I can hear the keyboards already. Because there's no way that there are not going to be comments telling us, how did you miss this, and why didn't you mention that? And I am sure Rockefeller is a very controversial name. So in this show, we give you our opinion. We're not God, but we're just doing the best we can. And from our best I can tell, I think we're both saying, and we've both agreed on this one, that he seems like he was a Christian, but we want you to be included as well. Leave your comment below and tell us, do you think we got it right? Or what were we missing? What part of his life did we skip over or not see in our research that would have given it more clear? Do you agree with us? Do you think he was a Christian, that sadly his legacy seems to have been ruined by what came after him? Or was it pretty obvious he was not a Christian and we somehow missed it? We will read your opinion, the general audience opinion on a later episode, so that you can have your say too, because we don't think we have all the answers. God's the only one who knows their hearts, but to the best of our ability as a group here, we're going to try to get to the answer of whether or not these guys are Christian or not.
Absolutely. And if anything, something we can learn from John Rockefeller here is that, give away some of your money.
Yeah.
Like, or give away as much as you can. Like you said, make as much money as you can, give away as much as you can. I think those are good words to live by. And I think that will actually help combat the feeling of greed. So,
And work hard too. Like, he clearly, like, you cannot say he got it handed to him. He worked hard. And I think that we need more stories of people working hard, knocking on those doors for 6 weeks straight. I think it's healthy for us to hear that, because it reminds us that like life is not always easy, and that's kind of okay, actually. So I really enjoyed reading up on this story, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it. We will see you next time on Christian or Not.